Hey everybody, it's Spencer, Defense Training, defensetraining.org, Facebook /Defense Training. If you haven't liked our YouTube channel, please do so. We're here bringing you number 4 in our muscle memory building series. We're going to add a step. First thing you need to do is check your firearm, make sure it's clear. Magazine out, rack the slide several times to ensure the magazine well and the chamber is clear. And then you can insert an unloaded magazine back in. Make sure this firearm is clear. And of course, the revolver, open the cylinder, make sure it's clear, get any ammo out of there, and then close the cylinder back up, get all the ammo away from you. Follow all your 4 cardinal safety rules. All guns are always loaded. Keep them pointed in a safe direction all times. Finger off trigger to use. We will use our finger today, but keep it off the trigger until we're using it. And then know your target, what is beyond. Put a target up on the wall, picture frame, something. Lock the door behind you. Make sure nobody's in the room with you so you can do this good and safe. Make sure that firearm is clear. Now, a couple things we're going to go over. This is my trainer. I really can't clear this firearm. Make sure you clear yours. Last time we worked on picking a spot on the wall. We were in, we went out, we checked it, we were good, we went back in, we checked, make sure we were good here. If you haven't seen the videos, go watch them. But today we're going to pick a spot on the wall, out, I'm going to check it, I'm going to put my finger on the trigger, I'm going to pull the trigger, and as I pull the trigger, I'm going to make sure this firearm is not moving. I'm going to make sure my sights stay aligned. I'm out, pulling the trigger, my sights don't move, finger off trigger, in. Out, check, finger, pull, out, in. Make sure this firearm doesn't move. Make sure it's not moving. There's a couple things you need to know about. If you've never practiced trigger control, and you need to practice trigger control with the firearm especially the firearm that you carry every day, take between your joint and the tip of your finger and get a center point. Where's the center line? Measure it. Draw your little center line or have somebody else do it for you. Put the center of this finger, the tip of your finger right up here, the center between the joint and the tip, to the center of your firearm, of your trigger. And I'm going to show you what, if I've got this to the center, I'm going to hold it in one hand, but I've got it to the center, the firearm doesn't move much. But if I don't have enough trigger finger on, watch this. Watch what starts happening. See that barrel moving over to the left? Too much. See it moving back over to my right? That's why you want center to center so it doesn't move. So practice that. Draw your line and practice that. Another thing, now typically your semi-automatics don't have that hard of a trigger pull, so it's not that big of a deal with trigger pull not being able to control it. But your revolvers, and I have a revolver here today, and it is unloaded. I've already checked it, but I'm going to show you. The revolver's loaded. Typically a revolver is 8 to 12 pound trigger pull, so they're pretty hefty. And I'm going to show you a trick. When you're pulling the trigger, sometimes this thing will jump off, and we'll show you a trick to help you work on trigger control. You can buy these little lasers. They're little laser pins. I got this one at Walmart, or 2 to a pack, $7. So you could go in together, $3.50 a piece. And I'm going to show you how to do this. This thing's got little buttons, and what I'm going to do, let's see if you can see that. There's the laser dot. What I'm going to do is tape the laser dot button down. I'm just going to take some electrical tape. I'm going to tape it down. Pull it nice and tight, where that laser is now on all the time. Now, I'm going to take this, and I'm going to try to pull this out. This is a little harder to do with it up in the air. It's easier to do, just keep your firearm on the table because it's easier to do. Take your electrical tape and tape this laser, and I say it's hard to do holding it because I don't want my hand going in front of that muzzle, but it's really hard to do. It's unloaded, I've checked it, but I still don't want my hand going in front of it. Now, what I've got is I've got a laser. Now this isn't perfectly aligned with my sights, and that's not what I'm worried about. What I'm worried about is working on trigger control. So I want to take the center right here of my finger to the center of my trigger. And I'm going to hold it, and I'm hoping you can see this laser pretty good at home. Now I'm going to hold it. I'm not even watching my sights, but I'm working on trigger control. So I'm going to put my finger on the trigger, and what you don't want to see, alright, I'm going to have to tighten this down a little bit more. Now, what you don't want to see is when you start pulling this trigger, you don't want to see, this is not what you want to see. Or if I have too little trigger finger, this is not what I want to see. Or too much trigger finger, this is not what I want to see. Because you can miss your target. What you want to do is hold it nice and steady, center to center, and pull, boom. You're going to have a little shake, especially with harder triggers, harder trigger pulls, heavier poundage on your trigger pull. You're going to have movement, but you don't want, I have students come in all the time and they'll grab these firearms that got these heavy trigger pulls and they haven't worked on trigger control. And I mean literally, now, and it like this doesn't look bad, and from me to this close of a distance isn't bad. But if your attacker is coming at you from a little further away, this little bit of distance here, 10 more feet out, is going to be like this. 12 more feet out, the further away it is, the less room for error you have. The same way with your sights. The closer the sights are to each other, the less room for error you have. But this will help you work on trigger control. Point it at the wall with your laser if you have it. If you don't, just watch your sights and pull, boom. And make sure your sights are aligned, and make sure that if you have the laser that it's not doing this. You don't want that. Practice that, work on your trigger control, and build your muscle in your finger up so you can build to where you can control the trigger, you can take out the shake, you can take out the movement. You know, you don't want it moving up and down, you don't want it moving side to side. You want it straight on your point of aim, center of mass, whatever the center of mass may be at that point in time. Depends on the person, depends on how they're coming at you, what are they behind, etc., etc. You know, how there's a lot of things that determine center of mass. So, firearms in, I'm going to pick a spot on the wall, I'm going to go out, I'm going to check it. Finger on trigger, pull, off, in. Now once you get to the point where you're hitting it every time, you really don't have to pull down. You can just kind of watch your firearms. So I'm just kind of looking at it, making sure my firearm's not moving. Back in, check, out. Check, here, out. What I'm looking for is you don't want any of this. You don't want any of this while you pull this trigger, and you sure don't want this. Now granted, I know some of you shake. I know there's some of you that are elderly and you shake anyway, but you need to minimize that shaking. Hold your breath so your chest isn't rising and falling, diaphragm isn't going up and down, because I don't want to do this. Minimize the shake as best you can. Check out some other videos we'll bring to you later about your shooting fundamentals. Work on the trigger control, and if you get bored with this, I'm aiming at about a 3/4 of an inch part on my tripod, and I'm hitting it every time. But if you get bored and you have a piece of paper or a picture frame, put your little 1-inch targets. Start shooting at 1-inch target. Come forward here, then you can come over, you can move, you can go here, you can do this one, and you can do that. Pull your trigger, make sure you're hitting them every time. Again, I don't care what kind of stance you're standing in, that does not matter to me. In a defense situation, as close as it's actually going to happen, you're not going to have time to get into a stance. You're not going to have time to worry about that stance. And I will go over a couple things that you need to train into, and we'll get to that point. Once we're actually drawing and coming for the shot, if we can actually get extension on it. If we can't get extension, we may just be standing up and down. You know, if I've got my gun on my side and somebody's attacking, I may just end up like this, and I may actually end up to where I'm having to walk backwards. And we'll go into all that, but work on that trigger control. Trigger control, sight alignment and trigger squeeze are the two most important fundamentals of shooting. Why? Because you got to maintain sight alignment. You've got to maintain your gun pointed at your target while you pull the trigger without it moving. They're the two most important fundamentals of shooting, and you need to learn that. Work on the trigger control, work on this 5 to 10 minutes a day. If you're having problems pulling the trigger, work on that alone 5 to 10 minutes a day, and then after you've worked on the trigger, now you can go here, pull, out, in, out, pull, off, in. You can work on that. This is building up your fundamentals of point shooting. We've got to get you to the point where if an attack does come, and I hope it never does, you don't have to think about all this stuff. You'll have confidence, hey, watch this. I can use this and I can defend myself. That's what we want to get to. Again, this is Spencer Defense Training. Go check us out at defensetraining.org, Facebook /Defense Training. If you haven't liked our YouTube channel, please do so. Stay safe, stay armed.